In chapter 11, I want to dive deeper into the whole issue of translation. And I'm starting with my dislike of the word literal. I'm somewhat controversial on this point, so I'll let you know that up front. If you ask most people what kind of Bible they want, they'll say, well, I want a literal Bible. And what they mean by that is I want one that's as word for word as closest to the Greek and Hebrew as I can get. And they equate that with accuracy. And that's not actually what the word literal means. The word literal has to do with meaning, not form. So a literal Bible is one that accurately conveys the intended meaning of the original author into the present audience. That's what the word literal means. But even beyond that, it's a tricky word because words don't have literal, one-to-one meanings. What's the literal meaning of the word key? Well, do you shoot from it, or do you play in it, or do you eat a certain kind of pie? See, the word literal has a whole range of meanings, and we look at context to determine which of these meanings applies in any one particular situation. What's true of vocabulary is also true in grammar. We don't have literal equivalents for so much of the grammar in Greek. Greek has two, what we generally call past tenses. One of them is called the aorist, and it generally describes a past action. Well, right until you come up to Jesus' baptism, the voice from heaven says, with you I was pleased. Was pleased? Well, it's an aorist. Why does it say was pleased? Which implies that God the Father wasn't pleased with Jesus at the point of his baptism. See the problem? The word literal is a very, very tricky word, and you have to be careful with it. Okay. Now, having got that off my chest, let me talk about some of the different principles that are at work in translation. I cover quite a few of these in the book, but probably the most significant translation principle there is are you going to err on the side of words to make it understandable, or are you going to err on the side of meaning to make it clear? When you're translating along and you can't go word for word and you're trying to figure out how to say it, what direction do you tend to go? And translations teams all have philosophies that help govern them in this situation. For example, you come across the word polis. What does it mean? Well, some people say, well, city. Well, if you say city in Nazareth, you're miscommunicating because Nazareth was a white spot in the road. It wasn't a city, it was a town, it was a hamlet, it was a white spot in the road. So again, you have to be really careful in assuming this one-for-one equivalence between Greek and Hebrew and English. What about audience? Who are you writing it for? Are they younger people, or are they people that have English as a second language? Well, you're going to use shorter words, shorter sentences, those kind of stuff. How important is English style in the Bible translation? For some translations, the English style isn't important at all. And you read the gospel writers and they sound like bumpkins that can't put a coherent sentence together because style wasn't that important to them. What about ambiguity? When the Greek is ambiguous, how are you going to handle that? What's your principle for ambiguity? I'll talk to people and they say, well, I don't believe a divorced person can be an elder in the church. I say, why not? Well, they say 1 Timothy 2 says they can. I say, show me the word divorced. It's not there. Word for word, it's the elder must be a husband of one woman. Well, you can't say that. It doesn't mean anything. The Greek is ambiguous. Is it one woman ever? Is it one woman at a time? Or does it mean faithful in marriage? Well, it's ambiguous and you have to be interpretive. And the final principle that I'm going to talk about in this chapter has to do with gender language. And let me say up front, I know of no mainstream translation that is gender neutral. No one is trying to remove gender. God is Father in all modern translations. The question has to do with meaning. What does the word autophos mean? Well, does it mean brother? Or does it mean a member of your faith community? And the way you might express that is to say brother and sister. What does the word anthropos mean? Does it mean male? Or does it mean mankind? So when Paul tells Timothy that there's one mediator between God and man, the man Christ Jesus, what's he saying? One mediator between God and males? And is it important that Jesus is a male or that he's a human being? Welcome to the whole debate on gender language. So we'll be talking about that in this chapter as well.